Welcome to this week's edition of the Dumpster Times. I am Wanda Duck, chief editor and proprietor of this dumpster here. I am based in Akron, Ohio, and I cover art, anarchy, and politics, and any other thing that grabs my interest. Like today, for example, I'm wearing a Titanic t-shirt. Yes. This is from a production of Titanic, an educational school production of Titanic that I directed many years ago. But I hold it out today because there have been many shipwrecks taking over my YouTube feed. Yes, I am inundated with shipwrecks, and lately it's gotten worse. They've tried to tempt me with airplane crashes and disasters at state fairs and things of that nature, but I stick only to the shipwrecks. You see, I do have a fondness for Titanic. And I admit, I got into this pickle with YouTube when that submersible sub went down, and I watched a few videos on that. And then after that, well, I was fair game for shipwrecks. And quite frankly, living here in Ohio, it is like a shipwreck. Feels like it has been for many a year here now. It's a disaster living in Ohio, and it's not very often that we have good news to celebrate. So we're celebrating the fact that we are no longer facing this horrible constitutional crisis with the Republicans telling us that we had to have a 60% majority to add something or change something to our state constitution. Something important to people like me, for example, a person who once had a uterus that was in danger of being invaded by an unwelcome thing. And in times past, it was very easy to get an abortion, but not so much so that we have to have a new state constitutional amendment so that women have access to all forms of obstetric care. And we're no longer running around worrying about how many weeks into this are we and what happens if the baby has something wrong with it and what happens if there's something wrong with us and our doctor's afraid to do anything. Oh, it's a mess. It's a mess. Thank you, Supreme Court. But here in Ohio, we now have the right to vote on this, and with a simple majority, 50+1, in November of this year, Ohio can establish the right for women to have their reproductive rights in perpetuity. So let it happen, Ohioans, let it happen. By the way, I just said Ohioans, and that is how you pronounce our collective identity. I was watching a show and I was kind of astonished that they said Ohioans, like we're from some redneck place. I don't know where, but it wasn't Ohio, because here we say Ohioans and we say Ohio. We like the double O's. Yes, indeed. So let me riff for a little while on Ohio, because quite frankly, until this past election, I was ready to leave. I was ready to jump off the ship, so to speak, before it sinks forever. In fact, I was thinking of sailing north to Michigan. Oh my gosh, I know my Ohio football friends are freaking out. How could you go to Michigan? Well, I don't care about football, for one thing. For another thing, they have a really cool woman governor who seems to be in control and not letting people run over her. And they are taking care of the radical right who have been trying to upset things up there. I would move to Rashida Tlaib's district in an instant. She would be a fantastic representative. So yeah, I was thinking seriously about moving to a state where most of the people feel the same way about things that I do. They have not only medical marijuana, they have legal marijuana up there. And I'm sure they'll be working on other wonderful things, including workers' rights, etc. Ohio, we are far behind. So Ohioans, please get your act together. Now we have the power to get these initiatives on the ballot. We can run around these stupid Republicans. We can hopefully get our redistricting right. Somebody said, take it out of the hands of the politicians entirely. Let's put the map in the computer and type in our criteria for how we want to divide things up and let the computer spit out a bunch of maps and then let the people decide, not the politicians. Here's what happened. For many years, I was represented by a family here in Akron, Vernon Sykes, and sometimes his wife, Barbara, and his daughter. And suddenly, this last election, I was no longer in their districts, either for Senate or state representative. I found myself relocated, even though I had not moved, to a district that was to Senate and representative districts that were led by incumbents, Republican, right wing, who were going to walk over the voters. I had no idea who they were. The Democratic Party chose to put up unknown candidates, so they couldn't find anyone. I looked and looked for information on these candidates, couldn't find anything. Felt like I was voting in the dark for this whole thing, and it was all because of redistricting. Now I am not being represented. Place that I live, it's pretty much 50-50 black and white. That's why I like it here. I like that there's no domination by either side. I feel relaxed. I feel welcome. I like to welcome the other people in my neighborhood, but in my voting districts, I do not feel recognized and I do not feel welcome. So that's what it's like living here in Ohio, Ohioans, and outside of Ohio. Let's hear how to pronounce this word.
Ohioan.
Not Ohio. All right, thank you. Now let us look at the leadership of the great state of Ohio. And these are people who were governors from the time before it was an actual state, when it was the Northwest Territory, all the way down. They've got their parties. There were Democratic Republicans, National Republicans, Democratic, Whig, Democratic, Whig, Democratic, Democratic, Whig, 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 Democratic. I'm reading this side. You can be looking over here at all these white men. Republican, Republican, Unionist, Republican, 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 Democrat, Republican, Republican. Now, at some point in all of this, what it meant to be a Republican and a Democrat changed a lot, like during the Civil War. So I think the important thing to note is that Ohio is pretty much flipping back and forth. Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. Here's a name we remember, William McKinley. Republican, 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 Republican. Ooh, that was a long line of Republicans. That was in the early part of the 20th century. Then we had a Democrat who died in office. Oh, sad. Then we have Republican, Democrat, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, and on and on and on. Back and forth it goes. And who benefits? Certainly not the people of Ohio. Okay, now we're coming into territory that I basically can remember. I don't remember these guys very much, but I do remember the horrible Jim Rhodes and what he did at Kent State. He sent the National Guard in to shoot those students. John Gilligan came in for a little bit during the war years, but as all liberal Democrats do in Ohio, they come in for one term and then they fade away. George Voinovich, very effective Republican. By effective, I mean he got everyone working to his orders, and then he became a senator. Bob Taft also became a senator. Ted Strickland, another Democrat who didn't do much, just sat around filling the spot for 4 years until Kasich took over, and he would have stayed forever. Ohioans loved him so much. I do not know why. He was in total control by the Koch brothers, and they had their little fingers on all of his policies, especially education policies. And now we've got Mike DeWine, who has a little streak of rationalism in him, but it's surrounded by this massive fatty tumor of religion and anti-abortionism. So You know, Mike, I don't care for you either. Let's look at the senators. Let's see. I don't know any of these people. Do you? All I know is that they're all white. They're all men. They all probably were richer than you or me. There might have been a poor one among them, but I doubt it. Ooh, I like this guy's name. Atlee Pomerine. I looked him up. He didn't do anything significant. He just sat in his office and showed up for events, probably. All right, Harold Hitz. All these people, Robert Taft, yes. So we had this golden era of two Democratic senators from 1976 to approximately 1999, when we had Howard Metzenbaum and John Glenn. And I'm sure they brought lots of projects into the state. But one thing they didn't do was build up a Democratic stronghold here in this state. It's like the cities are all islands of Democratic fervor, and the rest of the state is vast acreage of farms and people who will always vote Republican. So here we are at the present. Sherrod Brown and J.D. Vance. Ugh. Do you think there'll ever be a woman leading the state of Ohio? Because I truly think that that is one of the big problems here, that Ohio voters, the masses who go out and get the majority, if faced with a man and a woman on the ballot, will vote for the man. We're stuck there until we get a woman who is so strong and compelling that she gets the nomination and the victory. So far, in my lifetime, the Democratic Party has done really terrible at finding young people and building them up and developing their resumes and getting them experience and so forth. If I were in charge, folks, this is what I'd do. Everybody would get a free website with accommodations for people with disabilities, everyone who's running for office. They could post their platforms, they could answer questions, they could post their videos there, but they should keep their stuff off of my YouTube screen, off of our commercials in TV. I'm just sick of seeing commercials for politicians, because when you see a commercial, you realize that politicians are products and they don't really do anything for you. They do a lot for the people who are invested in the product that they're trying to sell, the corporate heads, the people who run things. So yeah, here in my dumpster, I'm not so trusting of the politicians from Ohio, but I am happy for Ohioans who voted last Tuesday and showed them that we are here still and we're not going to be trampled upon anymore. Right? Right. Out from Wanda. Come in. Come in. Oh, it's not working. Oh my God, what are we going to do? We're sinking. We only have minutes. I better call the governor. I better call my senator. I better call my representatives. Where are they? They've abandoned ship. It's just you and me. The people. Help!